And we're hoping to do more things like this with more speakers and panelists. And today's topic is something that I'm personally interested in learning more about is citizen development at enterprise scale. Um, I feel like citizen development is something that you read about, hear about, learn about on LinkedIn and reading content about. But we have a few folks here who are actually doing it at enterprises. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Matt Hubbard, who is kind of like a citizen development trailblazer in the space, and he's going to be the main moderator for today's panel. And for those of you who are here live, feel free to chat in with questions and comments along the way, and we'll try our best to answer them. But it seems like we have a relatively small group, so I don't think it should be too hard.
Mhm.
And for those of you who are watching this remotely or asynchronously, Matt has put everyone's contact information with their LinkedIn in the presentation he's going to share. So you can feel free to connect with folks on LinkedIn once you see his slides. And yeah, I guess we'll kind of hand it off to Matt. Matt, do you want to take it away?
Okay, thanks, Al. Let me go ahead and share my screen because I'm going to start out with a few slides and then we'll pivot to the panel. Let me know when you can see my slides.
Yep, got
All
it.
good.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, as I said, thank you, Al. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Citizen Development at Enterprise Scale. My name is Matt Hubbard, and I'll be your moderator for this discussion. I hold in high regard each person on this panel, and I will introduce them in just a moment. But first, let's cover some housekeeping and take a look at the agenda so you know what to expect. Okay, as Al said, this event is being recorded. Audience microphones are not enabled, so if you have questions, please post them in the Zoom chat, and they'll be answered during the scheduled Q&A at the end of our session. Now, if all goes according to plan, this is the agenda we will follow, but we're certainly open to going where the conversation leads us. The plan is we'll finish up this welcome with a brief introduction of our panelists. I'll then set the stage with a 15-minute overview of citizen development, and then we get into the fun stuff, the panelist stories. I told you earlier that I greatly respect each person on this panel. In fact, I like to think that they are like business superheroes. So maybe I should have called this section Origin Stories instead of Panelist Stories. In any case, each panelist will tell us how they got into citizen development and share some interesting stats about their enterprise programs. I hope you find their stories inspiring. After their origin stories, I'll ask the panelists a few facilitated questions around topics such as how did you get started? Did you experience any resistance? How are you governing such large programs? Any tips on technology and maybe some successes and failures? Then we'll take 15 minutes to answer questions that were typed into the Zoom chat, or if you feel brave, we'd love to have you hop on the camera to ask your questions live. Okay, finally, we'll close with some words of wisdom from each panelist. And as a thank you for attending, I've got a free Citizen Developer Foundation course for each of you. And that's basically your incentive to stay to the end. Okay, now that the boring admin stuff is out of the way, let's say hello to our panelists. All right, these are the smiling faces of today's panelists. Panelists, give me a wave if you can hear me. All right, I'm seeing everybody. Do we see, my screen isn't big enough. Do we see May? Is she
She's
waving
back.
too? Okay, all right, I'm gonna try to figure out how to open that up just a little bit so I can see May. There she is. Hey, May.
Hello,
All
I'm
right,
back.
we are a core group of 5 who met due to our common interest in helping citizen development reach enterprise scale. We get together at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, to share best practices and wrestle with the challenges that come with scaling. And on occasion, we open up our sessions to extended audiences for them to share their CD scaling stories with us or to pick our brains about CD-related challenges that they might be facing. Oh, by the way, when I say CD, that's my abbreviation for citizen development. It's just a shorter way for me to say it. So our guests have included journalists, educators, no-code builders like you, IT and business leaders, and we even had an investor come pick our brains about low code, no code. Now let's get a quick hello from each of our panelists. So panelists, the way we'll do this is let's give our name, our company, the location you're calling from, and then one activity that you like to do. So I'll go first, and then we'll go kind of left to right per the slide. So my name is Matt Hubbard. I work for AgilePoint, and I'm calling in from Sugar Grove, Illinois, which is 1 hour west of Chicago. The closest town to me that you may have heard of is Aurora, Illinois, and that was made famous in the movie Wayne's World from a long time ago. Some of you may have never heard of that. One activity I like to do, I like to ride bikes, but I don't like to ride regular bikes. I like to ride electric bikes because I'm old and I do need that extra assist. All right, that's it for me. Let's turn it over to Jesse. Name, company, location you're calling from, and one activity you like to do.
Hi, my name is Jesse Fu. I work for SiriusXM. I am calling in today from Houston, Texas. Normally I'm in New York. I live in Long Island and I work in New York City. That's where SiriusXM is based out of. One activity that I like to do outside of work is I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's fun. I mean, the main thing is it's fun. It's fun. It's fun beating up people. What can I say?
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. May, you next.
Hello, I am May. I am from Brazil. Actually, I'm doing an international assignment in Argentina. So I'm in Buenos Aires now, and I works for Shell in the IT team as a business analyst. And a thing that I like to do is triathlon. I run, bike, and swim. So I like sports.
Honestly, May, that wears me out just hearing all those things that you do. Remember, I'm the old guy that needs the pedal assist. Okay, Mike, you're up.
Hello, everybody. Mike McCullough. I'm calling from Suffolk, Virginia. I currently work for Amtrak, and an activity that I like to do other than chasing around 5 kids, I am an instructor in Krav Maga.
I was hoping you would say that, Mike. I don't know if everybody knows what that is. What is
it's
Krav
an
Maga?
Israeli combat system.
Yeah, so we've got a couple fighters is what I'm hearing in the group. We've got Jesse and Mike, and I'm not. So you guys got us, okay?
That's right.
All right, Stevie.
Yeah, Stevie Sims. Live in New Orleans, work for Shell. I'm part of the IDT team here in the U.S. Gulf Coast. I really like to cook. And I'm also glad, Matt, that we have friends that like to fight and can protect us in case we ever need it. So
I don't know, Stevie. You're a pretty big guy, so
that's what I heard.
Stevie.
Stevie, I haven't met you in person yet, but I heard just your presence is enough to avoid a fight.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got on fighting, but let's get back to citizen development. Okay.
Yeah, I also like to ride electric bikes too.
All right. Yeah. We need to hang out some more there, Stevie. All right, let's get back on to citizen development here. I'm going to give a quick overview. I'll take about 15 minutes to introduce citizen development by covering what citizen development is, a key benefit. I'll tell how CD made me more effective at my job, the challenge of scaling, and then I'll conclude with the current state of adoption. So first, what is citizen development? Now, I pulled these words almost verbatim from the Project Management Institute's Citizen Developer microsite. So the definition is slanted towards project management, but know that citizen development is applicable to all professions. So citizen development is the empowerment of project managers and other change makers to create applications using low-code, no-code tech, including AI, without complete reliance on IT for a fraction of the cost and time. And said in another way, maybe in my words, citizen development is for yahoos like me who don't know how to code, but need to create digital solutions. And low code, no code is the technology that makes this possible. Now, I love the 2 quotes on the right of this slide. The first says that citizen development is the greatest enabler of change of a generation. And the second says there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. Now, I don't know if citizen development is literally the greatest enabler of change of a generation, but I can say that it's made a huge impact on my professional effectiveness. Over 3 decades ago, the business world stepped up from paper to spreadsheets, and finally, 30 years later, we're stepping up to something more effective than spreadsheets, and it's called low code, no code. So what problem does citizen development address? Since the pandemic, the business world has gone all in on becoming digital. And in 2020, CNBC wrote that Microsoft expects 500 million new apps to be built in the next half decade. That's 500 million apps in 5 years, which is more than all the apps built in the last 40 years. So that's amazing, but here's the problem. Who's going to develop all those apps? There simply are not enough professional coders in the world to meet this extreme demand. And the size of our IT backlogs is evidence of the problem. I was at a Gartner app conference in Vegas last year, and several IT leaders confirmed this problem for me. They acknowledged that the majority of the projects on their massive backlogs will literally never see the light of day. And that's a huge problem, okay? But those same IT leaders gave me hope as they said that they do believe that low code, no code, and citizen development are becoming viable options for building more apps. Now, I can't see everybody on video, so I'm gonna assume you're raising your hands, but raise your hand if your company has a big IT backlog or one of your projects has ever been put on the backlog. How about my panelists so I can see them? Okay, they're all raising their, I'm assuming you're all raising your hands, and so let me say, yes, me too. And so I'll share briefly about my first experience getting put on the backlog. My background is in process improvement. I've been doing it for over 25 years. When I work to improve a process, I generally follow the 7 steps listed here. First, I define the problem, then the current state, then the future state, and then I make a roadmap of projects that will move us from the current state to the future state. Unfortunately, step 5 is usually where I'd get stuck. Prior to low code, no code, if my project required a digital solution and it wasn't one of the critical few projects on the top of IT's list, then these are the 3 options I was given. And frankly, none of them worked very well for my projects. The first option was to have IT build it, but because my project was not a priority, I'd be asked to wait, which was usually a polite way of saying, no, never gonna happen. The second option was to find ready-made software that can be bought off the shelf, but there rarely existed standard software that could handle the uniqueness of my operations without significant customizations or changing my process to the point that it's no longer effective. As well, off-the-shelf software can be very expensive. And the third option of Excel and email is usually the one I went with, not because it was effective, but because it's better than paper and it fit my budget, but the results were usually mediocre at best. So here's a quick example. In the early 2000s, I worked on a team that was charged with standardizing and digitizing 10 processes across 13 sites in 3 countries and involving more than 600 suppliers. It was a monumental effort, but we standardized and we were proud of our work. Unfortunately, I failed at delivering a digital solution after I was given a quote from IT to build it in 10 years, $10 million, and no changes. And I mean, it basically says we'd get one shot. So of course, we begrudgingly stuck with our spreadsheets and email, and I was left wishing there was a better way. Now, that was my challenge back in the early 2000s. But since then, our methods and technology have significantly advanced so that this backlog experience does not have to continue to be the norm. Enter low code, no code, the tech that makes it possible for citizen developers to build their own apps, not by coding, but by dragging and dropping. Low code, no code changed my professional effectiveness because prior to low code, no code, I told you I felt stuck on the backlog, but now I have a very good option to move forward by building my own high-quality apps without breaking the bank. The first app I built was just for me. Its function was to automate the chasing down of status updates and generating reports for my weekly project meetings. It took me 8 hours to build, but it saved me 200 hours of manual work per year. That's a 25x payback on the first try, and it reduced errors. My second app got a little more sophisticated as it was built for an entire department of about 120 people. That department used the application. It included a dynamic workflow engine. It digitized a paper-based approval process that rarely got executed correctly, if at all. So the result was no lost paper, perfect process adherence, and a significant reduction in the number of approvals required. From there, I built more apps and even started getting requests. But then, like IT, I started to become the bottleneck. Rather than have people wait for me, I started to teach others how to build their own. We would meet weekly, learn from each other, and share best practices. We had 6 citizen developers, built approximately 30 apps for procurement and supply chain, and had over 700 users. It was like a mini citizen development program. But here's the problem. We failed to scale beyond our little corner of the company. Why? Because our focus was primarily on the technology, the low-code, no-code platform. But scaling is more about management. All right, so how do you scale? And so let's start this with a quote from PMI's Chief Strategy Officer, Dave Garrett. I did a webinar with him a couple of years ago, and he told me this. He said, dabbling is easy, but scaling is hard, and it stuck with me. I was dabbling as a citizen developer, building a few apps here and there in a safe corner of our company. And yes, we did produce some value, but it was not the enterprise level game-changing value that our leaders wanted. But let me say this, even though scaling is hard, it is not impossible, and it is worth pursuing. And our panelists are evidence of this. To scale a healthy citizen development program, you need 3 things. You need people, you need technology, and you need process. When I started doing citizen development, I was only focused on the people and technology. I was missing the key ingredient of process for scaling to occur. And now when I say process, I don't mean the business process that an individual project is going to try to digitize. No, I mean the entire management framework for running a full-scale citizen development program, including things like your org structure, best practices, risk management, governance, training, support, KPIs, and so on. Building an app is one thing. Keeping an army of citizen developers motivated, effective, and safe is something entirely different, and our panelists have experience doing just that. All right, this will be my last slide before we get to our panelists' origin stories. With this slide, I just want to help you visualize what the adoption of low-code, no-code, and citizen development looks like today. This image is a product adoption curve, and I'll give you a quick overview, but check out Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm, to learn more. This curve illustrates the phases that every new product goes through as it gets adopted into the market. It starts on the left with the people who basically invent and initially use the new product. They are the innovators. From there, the new product gets into the hands of the early adopters, and early adopters see value in the new product in spite of the bugs and the kinks that need to get ironed out. Now, I did not invent low-code, no-code, but I am an early adopter of low-code, no-code as I started using it in 2010. Back then, it wasn't perfect, but it was certainly better than using spreadsheets or waiting on the backlog, at least for me. The most important step for a new product is to get into the mainstream market by crossing the chasm from the early adopters to the early majority. Once there, the new product has a good chance of survival. If it doesn't cross the chasm, it risks death or obscurity. Now, I think I can plot both low-code, no-code, and citizen development on this curve. I believe that low-code, no-code as a technology has crossed the chasm and is now in the hands of the early majority. I believe it will continue its path through both the mainstream and late markets, and I see no evidence to the contrary. Now, large-scale citizen development, on the other hand, I believe it has not yet crossed the chasm. I think it's currently in the hands of early adopters like our panelists, who are helping to iron out the kinks and inspire others to begin. So with that, let's see what inspiration we can glean from the stories of our panelists. We're going to switch to the origin stories, and we're going to do this a little bit different. No more PowerPoint, okay? At least not till the closing. Instead, I'm going to stop sharing. Stop sharing. I think it has gone away, correct? Y'all just see videos now? Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. So we've got, like, basically what I want to do is we've got about 40 minutes. So that's about 10 minutes per panelist, okay? And let's just let each panelist tell their stories. We'll kind of sit back and relax. I'm not going to be interrupting with questions, maybe. But they'll tell their name, their company, their role, when and why and how they got into citizen development, and hopefully tell us some stories along the way, because that's where it gets real interesting. And then I'd like each of you to conclude with some highlights about your company's citizen development program, like when it started, how many citizen developers you have, how many apps, something you're most proud of, yada, 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 okay? And we will go in this order. We'll start with Jesse and then go to Mike, then May, then Stevie. So Jesse, you're up first, buddy. Let's hear your origin story.
All right, so I'm Jesse. I work for SiriusXM. My role there, my business title is Senior Director of Automation and Business Transformation. So my origin story, how I got involved in low-code, no-code is prior to my current, my job with my current employer, before I was working as a consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's when I started really using low-code, no-code, because we were doing consulting work with different clients, and using low-code, no-code tools, we were able to deliver automation to clients that doesn't disrupt their how IT has it as their enterprise system. Is something that we can plug and play, and we called it small automation at the time. I don't know if they still market it as that, but just something that we can easily plug into any client's system and help automate some processes, help automate data transformation, etc. About 2 years ago, so I found out that SiriusXM was hiring. They were hiring someone to manage their automation program. So we call it the Automation COE, Automation Center of Excellence. So what happened was that SiriusXM, they kind of like what Matt said, they had tools, they had people, but there was no governance around it. So what ended up was that people learned the tools, people were doing automation, but it was very hard for the business to really know what are the benefits that such a program is yielding. They saw that there were automations where essentially it's doing the same thing. People are not talking to each other. They're just building things, and they might be pulling data from the wrong sources. So they decided that they needed to hire someone to help govern this. So the controller at the time, I was interviewed by the controller, and he hired me in. And one of the things that he said was that he wanted to have more autonomy, because, like Matt said, there's a lot of backlog in the IT department. So he wanted to build the workforce of the future. He wanted his people to be more analytical and not doing these manual tasks. Because I work in finance, if you think about it, a lot of accountants are doing a lot of repetitive tasks, do the same number crunching. It's very rule based. It's not something where you really need to have where you're really doing a lot of analysis. So he wanted to give his people more time to do more value added work. So I got hired in to start this program. So year one, what I started was it just happened to be similar. At that time, I wasn't looking at the PMI Citizen Development Handbook yet. But the way that I approach it was really similar to how the book says it. First was to start a community. What I did was I found a bunch of people who are interested in doing automation. I picked one or two. We call them automation champions, and we started meeting every week. So every week we would talk about we will have an agenda. We talk about projects, and it was just a weekly touch point for people to crosstalk. These automation champions, their function is really the liaison between myself and the COE and the business, because in order to scale, I didn't want to have to talk to every single person who was involved in automation, because then there's a lot of noise. So I said, let me just start off with having one or two representatives for each business unit, and we will meet weekly and we will talk and see what projects people are working on, and we document them. So we start from there. The other thing that I started advocating for is to incentivize upskilling by people learning properly how to use a tool and the best practices and how to do documentation. That's how I can start growing my program, start growing my citizen developers, start increasing project throughput, and improve on the quality of the solutions that delivered. So that's how we evolved. And our controller, later on, he got promoted to CFO. So now my scope actually expanded. That's actually one of the challenges that I'm facing with is we did a great job at the controller, for the controller org. How do we expand this to the different departments? And that's something that I'm wrestling now. And I have a strategy figured out, and we're testing it out and see how it's going to play out this year. And some of the key stats, how many citizen developers? Last time we sort of did a quick overview. We have about 40 something developers for the controller org, and some of the people in finance, and we have about 500 something projects that's built. The proudest achievement that I have is to get the controller org excited about automation, because what I was aiming for was cultural change. Before, there was a phase when I had to say, hey, we need to turn around X number of projects, but now they are very self-motivated. The new controller, he has goals, he has X number of projects that he wants to automate, and they're very mature right now, and so that's what I'm trying to replicate for these other new business units under a CFO org. So that's my story. Matt, was there anything I missed?
No, that was very good. Thank you, Jesse. We will move on to Mike. Mike, please tell us your origin story, Super Mike.
Thanks, Matt. So again, I'm Mike. I work at Amtrak, and I am the citizen development business architect. And so what does that mean? You know, it means I get beaten up a lot for for trying to support folks. But no, it's all good. My origin story, much like Matt, I am a process improvement nerd. I did that after I got out of the military for probably about 10 years. And again, it was always that, hey, I have a problem. I need a digital solution, and boom, stuck. So about 7 years ago, I was recruited to come to Amtrak, and I was working with a lady in the project management office, and same thing. Hey, we need to figure out what money we're spending for projects, and we didn't have one system to track that. When I started looking, it was, hey, these folks are keeping it in note papers and Excel. Some people used projects. Some people had software they were using. I found a low-code data analytics platform, and I thought, man, this can't be that easy. This can't be this simple. And so I just kind of started poking through it, and I was like, wow, this is kind of legit, this is kind of quick. And I kept waiting for the hammer to drop, like, oh, it doesn't do this, or you can't do that, or, it's something more complicated. And it wasn't. And so I just thought, wow, yeah, this is pretty cool. So that kind of brought me into low code development with applications, flows. And again, we're trying to keep this software agnostic here. So I'll try not to mention platform unless you just straight up ask me what I use. But it was one of those things where when somebody sees something good, and this is kind of the secret behind your scaling, when somebody sees something good, they want to be attached to it. And I started getting noticed with some of the projects we were turning around and doing. And then somebody would come to me and say, oh, well, hey, I want to do that. How'd you do that? And so I'd show them, and they're like, oh, this is awesome. So it was like this kind of like, grassroots initiative, if you will. The problem is that more and more people started taking notice, and then they started going to IT. And IT is like, yeah, so about that, we don't know anything about this software. What is this low code that you speak of? Yeah, we're just going to turn all this off. And they did. Well, luckily, it had got enough traction, enough success to where enough people said, oh no. And this was at leadership level. They're like, no, we really need this back on. We need to explore this. So they did, very reluctantly, and they fought folks tooth and nail. And it was just, like I said, it was one of those things, they just didn't understand it. So COVID hits. And I remember it's like, we're responding to an infectious disease, and there's 100 of us sitting in a conference room together. It was real smart, which 8 people wind up getting COVID, by the way. But nobody turned into zombies and nobody died, luckily. So the request was, we needed to be able to track, because at the time we didn't understand it fully. We needed to be able to trace instances of COVID that reported through our stations or our buildings, and then be able to go back to passengers. Again, we didn't have anything that did that. So the ask went to IT. And they said, sure, we can do that. And it's going to take us like, 9 weeks and this many developers, and we'll try to get to it as quickly as possible. And our CEO's like, no, we need this like now. So I started brainstorming, and I thought, oh, you know what? I think I can do this with the apps and the dashboarding and everything else. And so I went and talked to the lady that had hired me, my boss. And she's like, hey, if you think you can do this, why not? And I'm like, well, I think I can get this done in like a week. We went and talked to the head of IT, and it was kind of funny because I literally could just see him. Sure, yeah, go ahead, give it a shot, right? Well, I did. And I went back to the hotel, and I got out a minimal viable product overnight. The next morning I came in and I said, hey, minimal viable, this is what I've got. And immediately they started attacking the quality of the work. Well, what about data security? And what about privacy? And what about this? And I had an answer for every single one. And that was kind of like, I want to say that was like the aha moment for Amtrak. They were like, wow, this guy just made us look really, really bad. And here's this product. And we've got the entire VP staff in there, all of our executives. And so we were using it, and it was working, and we were able to scale it. And I think that was the big thing right there. It was the scalability. So it went from a small product to a larger product to a very large product. And it was, like I said, I mean, it was awesome. So I want to say fast forward about 6 months, I get a phone call, and it's our CIO, and he's like, hey, guess what? You now work for IT. And I'm like, no. And I'd always said, like, I would quit before I worked for IT because I usually had a love-hate, mostly hate relationship with them. But I thought, you know what? Hey, this is the best place to do this. This is the best place to get this program up and running. I had seen the empowerment with the folks that had been using it. And so that's what I did. You know, I took the job. I've been doing it for 5 years now. And we have gone from myself to about just under 1,300 makers. We call them makers, not developers, just to kind of, you know, sugarcoat what we do. In that 5 years, we have gone from about 12 products. My latest is 48,663 products. Now that includes dashboards, data sets, flows, apps, you know, a little bit of everything. If it's low code and somebody else other than a developer has built it, it's one of our products. We cover every single department in our company. Let's see, I stopped counting a couple months ago. We're at about 2 million hours that we've recorded being brought back to the company, and we're looking at probably about $100 million in recouped savings. So yeah, it's been very successful. Now, am I the developer anymore? No, absolutely not. I'm the person who is now scaling this from a grassroots effort into a, hey, you know, now this has to be a mission critical application, or it's going to contain sensitive data, so now in that, what we're doing is, and along with AI, it's how now do we take the next best step in implementing this as an enterprise solution. So it's been pretty neat. Things that I'm super proud of. Every week I talk to somebody who has come up with a unique or innovative solution that I was just telling our hosts at the beginning of the call before everybody joined. I talked to somebody this morning. The guy's a railroad foreman. He works on the railroad most of the time, but he manages now a large group of workers. He had never heard of low-code applications until about 3 weeks ago. One of my colleagues had mentioned my name and what we do. He got some of the material that we had produced, started using it, and has built himself a couple of apps that is saving him several hours a week. And he's more efficient for managing that. So I just love the fact that even a simple solution has so much impact. The other thing I love is the fact that when I go out, because I do a lot of talks and webinars and traveling, when I leave, the program still runs. I think that's one of the greatest strengths of this. It's not us going to IT or this small team of low-code developers that then take our ideas and our products and give us, again, exactly what we get, which is not usually what we want. These are folks that are doing it. They're building it. It's that, you know, 1,200 folks that are producing these products. As I'm gone, they're talking to each other, they're sharing ideas, they're helping each other. So it's a fully sustainable program that I literally just have to keep the wheels greased and keep the initiatives going. So it's been wonderful to kind of be responsible for building something like that, but then see them take it all to the next level. So that is my story.
I love your story, Mike. Every time it just, I lean in. I was smiling a lot. I didn't want to go on camera because I want the attention to be on you, but you had me smiling a lot. There is one more question I want to ask you, Mike, specifically because you've answered this for me before, and I really appreciate the answer. I want to know, what difference do you see because of citizen development? And you might not give me the answer I'm looking for, but let me just seed it, okay? Because you might go a different direction.
Yeah.
You told me that people are collaborating again.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What did you mean?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I could talk for days, which I promise I won't, about what the changes that I've seen with the implementation of a low-code development program. As a process improver, one of the biggest hurdles that we typically face and root causes is the fact that people get into these cubby holes or these silos and they don't talk to each other. When these folks start building products and flows and apps and dashboards. They are now talking to their inputs and outputs and trying to do things better. At that low level, that foundation, that's building up and transferring from frontline worker to manager to director to C-suite, because it sets a great example. We are seeing the fruits of what we're doing. And it's honestly, it's definitely made our company a better place. It really
That's
has.
fantastic. So. That's fantastic. That's one of the things I'm learning about collaborating with all of you month to month is there are benefits coming up that we could have never seen coming.
Yeah,
challenges too, right? Challenges that
challenges, yeah.
predicted,
we're facing that challenge right now where we are scaling from individualized products or for a small group now to enterprise implementation. We're talking to passengers with our low code products, which I said before would never happen because that's not what we do. Well, we are doing it now, and it's a
sorry,
huge
Mike.
challenge.
For a second there, I thought you were going to tell me that you're getting your passengers to start building apps for Amtrak.
That would be awesome too, right? How about a free ticket if you build us an app?
All right. Thank you for your story, Mike, Mike and Jesse. And let's move on to May now.
Hello, guys. So I am May. I work for Shell as a business analyst from the IT department, delivery. And I also play the do-it-yourself coach role that I can explain a bit better when I explain. I set the scene with the global program of Shell that for citizen development. So, but I've I've connected with Matt and Mike and Jesse when I got the chance to do the PMI CDBA and CDP certification. And doing so, I discovered the exciting world of citizen development, and I was fascinated by the many ways that local no-code tools could deliver business value. So with my role, my passion lies in helping the business to understand their pain points, in finding effective solutions through do-it-yourself tools. Because setting the scene right now, Shell has a huge program for citizen development, and we call it do-it-yourself, the do-it-yourself program. So it started in 2019 as an IT strategy that recognized that the immense potential of digital transformation through citizen development. And the team in Houston, I was not there. I'm just surfing the wave. And the team there took the first step and developed and created DIY vision and the goals. And then in 2020, the team took a major step by establishing a robust framework for the DIY program. Also started to empower the staff with specific training, learning paths, and generating content to upskill all the staff. So 2021, formalized the DIY COE, the Center of Expertise, which became a hub for innovation, learning, supporting for all DIY stuff. And at Shell, we have the structure, the governance that counts with a global DIY central team that stands for plan the strategy of citizen development to implement, and a COE team, the hub team, which stands for supporting the developers around the world, and the DIY coaches. That's why it's where I fit. And the DIY coaches support the local communities. The program at Shell is global, so we have communities in each country. So I am a do-it-yourself coach for Brazil country, and now I'm doing the same role for Argentina. So in Brazil, we have a pretty journey with citizen development. We started, I guess, 3 years ago, doing lots of initiatives. I'm proud to help the team to establish the community, to help the business to shape their business case, and to guide them through the process, the DIY process. And I am also responsible to promote events, to upskill, to do the awareness of around the city development process. And I'm really proud of our journey, that we started to do awareness, then hands-on training, face-to-face, and boot camps. And the last one event that we have done, it was a 2-week event, call it DIY Summit in Hackathon. And the first week was a big event with lots of training, advanced training, basic training, and we had the support of global teams. And the last week was an entire week for the hackathon, which provided for the business free MVP solutions and almost $1 million of NPV. And I'm really proud of this. All the company was excited, impressed by the value that the hackathon bring to the company. And now we are planning another one in April. And now I'm doing the same. I'm bringing the expertise and the best practice that we applied in Brazil, and I'm starting the program, the community, establishing the community here in Argentina. And I'm really excited to see uh, what's coming next. So we are just starting planning the strategy, communicating to the business, and I'm really excited to do this here in Argentina.
All right. Thank you, May. I told you that I hold you individually in high regard, but I also want to say that I hold the Shell DIY program in high regard. I think it's the benchmark in the world. You guys started this whole movement, gosh, almost 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And being a trailblazer like that, like the others on this panel are, is no easy task. But you guys
Yeah.
have a lot of citizen developers. I don't know if Stevie will share those stats. I'll hold off sharing them, but it's just something to admire. And the one thing I want to comment about for you, May, is your role. You're a coach. That's a new role, okay? That's something that
Yeah.
CD, Citizen Development at Scale, is starting to spawn, is new roles, things that didn't exist before. So instead of IT being the order taker, just tell us what to build, now you're
Exactly.
coaching others on how to do that. That is unique, and that's serious commitment. And I bet you have a lot of fun with that too. It's probably rewarding to
For
transfer
sure.
knowledge to somebody else. So fantastic. I remember, gosh, I'm going to start telling stories. I should probably stop myself, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I remember a CIO I was talking to a couple of years ago. I was talking about citizen development at scale, and he was like, "Oh yeah, citizen development. I tried that. It didn't work." And I was like, "Well, what did you do?" "Well, we gave the whole company access to the low code, no code technology." And I was not impressed with what these business people built. We had to like redo all of their work. And I'm like, "Well, what else did you do? Did you give them training? Did you coach them? Did you show them what good looks like?" "No, we just gave them access to the platform." What did you expect, right? So
Without
yes,
governance, without anything, the process. Oh, okay.
yep, nothing. Just there's your technology, and then I'm going to complain about the apps you built. So I appreciate the commitment that Shell has in creating these communities and roles such as coaches to ensure that folks are successful. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, May.
Thank you.
Okay, Stevie, Shell number 2. Over to you.
Yeah,
Origin
sure.
story.
Yeah, so it's almost like May and myself ended up in the same place, but took very different paths, right? So I'll kind of talk about a little bit currently and then kind of backtrack and kind of, you know, take the audience through the journey to get there. So again, Stevie Sims, I'm an IT employee for Shell, particularly in our IDT department for the U.S. Gulf Coast. We support the entire Gulf Coast chemical and products region. So chemical and energy parks in the downstream sector of Shell. Um, I am a full-time developer. I am titled an IDTA advisor, but majority of my work is focused on building and deploying low-code, no-code solutions for the business. So everything from analytic dashboards, automated flows, web-based applications, connected worker field device, iPad applications for the field, anything you can think of to automate or to make more efficient the communication of data, or automating any process you could imagine in the chemicals and products downstream manufacturing business. Currently have built and deployed, over 100 flows, 50 plus applications, another 30, 40 dashboards, et cetera. And so that's me currently. That's my 40-hour week job. Again, 5 years ago, would have never imagined this is where my career would have taken me with Shell. So kind of backing up the story, I've been with Shell for 10 years. Started out as what's known as a process operator. So in the field, turning valves, hard hat, Nomex suit. I went to school for 6 years to get a 2-year degree in process technology. Just tried to work hard and learn as much as I could and be a really good process operator. It kind of landed me a job or a temporary role in another group, where I was just exposed to tons of data and spreadsheets. And so I learned to, how could I be more efficient with my own process and how can I make my own organization better by learning as much as I can, in Excel. And so if you can imagine at the time in 2018, late 2018, I had never, opened and saved a spreadsheet before. It seems like relatively, not that long ago. So my digitalization journey started kind of late in my career. And it started with just like, hey, how can I apply logic? How can I go on YouTube? How can I go on Google and learn how to make these spreadsheets do more? So I'm not clicking here, clicking there, copy paste. And so like one of the big inflection points in my story, I tell this all the time, I was literally like copying and pasting spreadsheet data from one list to another. And I had a coworker and friend come up to me and show me how to use VLOOKUP. And so that person was like my very first co-pilot. And I say that, when I tell the story, because it's true. Like I can remember where I was standing, exactly what I was doing at the time when I learned VLOOKUP. And that really changed my digitalization journey forever. Like I immediately went home, started to learn how to use VLOOKUP more effectively, how to do conditional formatting. And I became like this small little Excel champion for my organization. So kind of fast forward a couple of years, like Mike said, a lot of these things are driven out of necessity and times, right? So another inflection point, like for us locally, was COVID, right? So COVID like forced us to learn how to work apart so we can continue to work together. And so we had to adopt digitalization and digital tools and things like, meeting remotely and doing things. And so that really accelerated the adoption. And it also accelerated the appetite for learning. So I was kind of getting involved with learning as much as I could about different tools on the different platforms. And I can remember another, major milestone or inflection point in my journey was for us in South Louisiana. We had a major hurricane hit in August of 2021. It was Hurricane Ida. And so at the time I had evacuated and I was on vacation anyway. So I came back to the site and if you can imagine just tons of damage, a bunch of data points, spreadsheets, emails, communicating all this information and tons of spreadsheets all over the place. And so I built my very first analytic dashboard to report and display all of these different jobs and all of these different backlogs of jobs, and what were the statuses, where were we at, how many were planned, how many were executed that day. And it came out really well, and it was like the first aha moment for us very locally that, hey, like when you start to tie people that know the business and know the data to these low-code tools, you start to create this formula for really extreme value add, right? Because sometimes when you think about it, like if you just take an IT person that doesn't know the business and know the data, and you try to communicate what you want, it's at times difficult. But when you take somebody from the business that has that domain knowledge and expertise, and you start to teach that person how to learn to use the data or how to use low code, no code tools to do more with the data, and then it really starts to build some magic. So, like I said, build the first dashboard. That kind of turned the page to, hey, it's really good to display analytics, but how do we create application interfaces that we can start to, from wherever in the field, communicate data. So that kind of led to our first couple of applications. Went on to just continuously build applications for my own department. So really embodying that citizen development mindset where I'm, producing low code, no code tools for my own for my own use and for my own departments. And then that kind of spread to, hey, people in these other departments need some help. Like May said, that right around 2020 and 2021, the Center of Excellence and the whole, Center of Excellence movement for DIY was starting with Shell. And so we had pockets of excellence out there, but nowhere, where it is today. So it started to continuously grow, and I ended up moving into a technology team locally, and then a year later into an IT team. So now, I kind of jumped from the citizen developer hat to developing, full-time for the business, but also coaching other citizen developers, inspiring others, putting on workshops and hackathons and stuff like that to continuously try to grow and bring more people onto the landscape. So we do things like host weekly calls. We call it the Power Hour on Fridays. We have a large community of new developers coming in. And in the times, where you have, when economic times get tough for businesses, right? If you can have people bring value from low code, no code solutions and start to bring value to their business, how do you leverage people like me that are coaches to help bridge that gap? So a couple of stats. I think I didn't know which ones Maeve was going to talk about for Shell, but for our documentation, things that's been released to the public through like the Forrester reports and stuff like that. Over 6,500 trained developers in the last 3 years. 4,000 are active currently. For the U.S. Gulf Coast, we have over 130 trained developers. Most everybody that's trained is active. 264 applications in the last 2 years for the U.S. Gulf Coast. Just we're figuring out ways to scale not only the growth of more citizen developers, but we're also taking a very much a value over volume approach. How can we slow down and build enterprise level apps? How can we slow down and build high quality apps? How can we make sure that the governance is in place, that we have good data, single source of truth, and those things? So numbers isn't always the best story there. I think we are taking more of a value over volume approach now. Trying to think what else I might have left out. Kind of scroll through a few of my notes, but yeah, it's been a fun journey. And like I said, wasn't a tech person, wasn't super computer savvy. late 2018, had never started a spreadsheet or saved one. And now, 2022 DIY Hero for the Globe. So an award given to the top developer within the citizen development community for Shell. Full-time developer. This is all I do. I wake up at 4 a.m. sometimes, and it's just truly living a dream, doing exactly what I want to do, solving these puzzles every day, and bringing value and joy to people's lives. Because you're eliminating manual tasks, you're providing people with additional time to focus on high quality work, and so that's part of the main message here. It's not always about like how much value do these applications bring. It's how much value do you bring to people's own personal work life, and that's been really special for us.
Well said, Stevie. I love the journey you've been on, because what I just heard was 2018. You hadn't even whipped up a spreadsheet yet.
It's like November 18th of 2018.
Oh, specific day, end of 2018. You hadn't even whipped up a spreadsheet yet. And
I remember going, like, asking a buddy, like, how do I make these columns stretch out? I remember, like, the first time I learned how to fill down numbers in the spreadsheet, I was like, holy moly.
Mind blown.
I had to go 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So if you can think about it, like, for a person like me, like, learning VLOOKUP was like such a real inflection point on my digitalization journey. Like, that was like, I can apply like some logic and automate all of these things to come all the way over here,
I wonder how many people there are like you out there that potential just has not been tapped yet, because you're in IT now. You got hired by IT, right?
Yeah.
You're building apps in IT. And if I want to take inventory, Stevie's in IT. May, you're in IT. Mike, you're in IT now. Brother Jesse, you're the holdout. You're the only one. Arms crossed.
I am a champion for the business users. So that's my stance.
Yeah. And so most of my career was centered in the business, from the business, for the business. When I left the business to join IT, one of my main goals, and which was communicated from the management team that I left and the management team that I was hired into, was like, we are on a journey now to create a closer knit fusion team between the business and IT. You'll see that over, throughout organizations, not just in Shell, but, throughout the globe. Now, with things like citizen development and low code, no code, you are bringing the business and IT into a fusion team.
I like that.
Like never before. So it's really important to continue to, people say all the time, like, oh, you cross over to the dark side. I'm like, yeah, I'm going over there to bring everybody together because this is the future, right? This is the way forward.
The past was too much us and them. Too much.
Right. Yeah. No. We got to get away from that for sure.
Okay, well, thank you for your story, Stevie. We are probably just a couple minutes long right now, but not too bad. I built in some buffer time. So we're going to pivot to the facilitated questions now. So if everybody will, not everybody, if the panelists will go on camera and turn your microphones on. We don't need anybody muted during this. This will be a group discussion. I'm going to start with a topic, and kind of one of you will get it rolling, and then if others have comments about it, you can chime in. So the first topic is getting started. And the note I have here is that overcoming inertia is hard. And the vision I have in my head is watching like National Geographic about wildebeest crossing the croc-infested waters in Africa. You guys all know what I'm talking about? Like, the wildebeest are all piled up on the edge. Nobody wants to go first, right? But then once the first or second or third go, then inertia takes over and the flood happens. And I imagine like getting started with CD might be something like that. But Mike, if you want to take this first one, just tell us, how do you overcome that inertia?
Yeah. So I think the important thing to remember here, or to keep in mind, is so going back to your wildebeest references, end users, everyday workers, frontline workers, we don't care. We need something. We're just like, we have got to get to the other side of that river, right? Where I find that you find the holdouts, they're like, oh, you do it first. Nobody wants to go on record and possibly with the risk of maybe being wrong. And that's typically at the director manager level. So how do you get that inertia? Well, again, you start small, you find one little problem, and you fix it using low-code development. And then you make sure that other people see what you've done. But it's not enough just to see what you've done. You also need to show viable results. Like, hey, what's my ROE? What's my result on experience or result on investment? So it took me 2 hours or a week to build this app or whatever, and what has it done for me? That's what people want to hear and see. So you're like, oh yeah, you just see this timesheet approval thing that we built. Yeah. Oh man, it's saving us so much time. Plus, we always get it done. That's the kind of stuff that people want to see. Once people start seeing that little win, they're going to want more. They're going to want more. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We want to be attached to something that's good, and we want to self-actualize. So start small, make sure you're meeting, you're solving a problem, and go from there. It literally, the momentum will take care of itself.
Mike, I want to make a brief comment on that. I was just listening to, Phil Lakin from No Code Ops.
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to a podcast about scaling that he was on today, and he threw out a 4-letter, I don't know what you call it, acronym or whatever, but it was ABCD. And he said, always be claiming dividends.
I like it. I like it. Yeah.
You have to, so that you can get the recognition and acknowledgement that this is good and we need to do more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to furthermore recognize the people that have, done it. Like, it's great that you show it, but as a manager, highlight that one of your employees or one of your frontline workers has done this. That in itself, I find, goes so much farther. I mean, yeah, money's nice, recognition, raises, promotions, but just having somebody saying thank you and like, hey, great job, look what this person did, that goes so much farther, I think.
Oh, wow. Wow. Now, May and Stevie, I know you guys do that in your program. You have recognition and awards. What difference does that make in other people? Does that motivate them and encourage others to join in the inertia overcoming?
For sure, we have lots of awards inside Shell, inside the DIY program, and also the IT structure, like the CIO awards, CFO awards, and also the DIY monthly awards. And we have recognitions, celebrations. We identify DIY heroes. Steve was one of them. So Steve can talk more about the engagement and the inspiration that win DIY hero means for everyone.
Oh yeah, sure. So it was I think there's like 200 or 300 nominations, and then it's like it got down to like 10, and so like every step of the way they're constantly promoting it, like on things like Yammer and your internal media posting within the company. And so the last couple of years they've done like a pretty big production for the award ceremony and for like the lead up and the build up to it. So like you said, like it, even if that inspires people to like kind of turn and say, well, what is this? Or how is, this guy that we just saw a couple months ago turning valves in a unit nominated for this, what does even DIY mean? So it definitely it definitely inspires people to want to know more about it and learn how they can get involved and how they can start contributing.
Yeah.
Good.
Hey, Matt, we've got a question here from Georgina.
Yeah.
So the question is, what do you think is one of the most powerful measures or measurements of success for your CD program, or a favorite KPI of CD?
Go ahead.
So I would say, so here's the challenge that we face as developers, as low-code developers, right? Not really developers. Typically, when you do ROI on an application, that application is typically bringing in revenue, right? So Amazon, when you're on, on your way to work or whatever, and you're scrolling and you're buying things, that is a measurable piece of data. Now, we typically are not going to do things like that in low-code development. So I would challenge you to then look at your existing process and identify, like, okay, how long does this take? Or what problem am I solving? When you develop an app, you're solving a problem. What is the end result of when you solve that problem? So it used to take me an hour. Now it takes me a minute. When I do AI talks about AI for the Project Management Institute, I'll say, hey, what is one of your biggest time consumers being a project manager? And people will say, note taking. Well, guess what? What if you could build an app that, and you don't really need to build it because it's kind of, but this is just an example. What if you had an app that as we were doing this meeting, it was taking notes for us, and then at the end, it summarized everything, and then you just copy and paste. That is time better spent doing something else. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky at times, but I think identifying where you're making gains and then highlighting that. Also remembering that as you scale from grassroots effort to actual like a strategy, one of the things that we're looking at now is we're building an app or a flow, an AI flow that is going to be able to alert our passengers of train delays or boarding. We can directly link that to our customer satisfaction index. So when we get praise, it goes up. When we get dinged, it goes down. That affects me at the end of the year. Number one, funding in Congress, and also bonuses for employees. So those are things that you can directly measure. So we didn't used to do that, but now we are. So you're constantly having to adjust your aim.
Awesome. Awesome.
I think it also depends on the how sensitive the organization is, because some organizations they don't like tracking such things. So it depends on the company culture. But but you can start from like what Mike said. It's kind of like when you build this app, why did you want to build this app? Is it save your time to just log the time save? And when you, even though it might be 15 minutes per day, but then if you just multiply that by every workday, how many people might use it, then the number can grow substantial. So that's just those are some things to think about. Also, what additional capabilities that it offers. Some of it is not necessarily is going to be time saving. Some of it is just because the CEO needs such and such report, and like there's return to office initiative that they want insight. There's nothing that provides them that. It's a new process. There's no time save because it's new. No one ever done it in the past, but now you provide that capability. So those are some of the things that would help you try to advertise your success, how to measure your success. Other things that, and it depends on whether you're talking about the individual level or more at an enterprise scale level. At enterprise scale level, some of the things that I measure for a successful program, not just the solutions being built. I'm also measuring how many people get certified on these local no-code tools, my upskilling. Because another thing that I felt proud of that I forgot to mention was that I evaluated what the company has for upskilling internally, and I thought that was crap. I was like, you know what? For the controller work, we're going to license another tool. I vouched for it, and then I was able to prove that, you know what, by us licensing these tools, more people are accessing the tool that I specifically spent more money, license it, and I can say, you know what, now I've tried to build a correlation by people being upskilled. Now there are more projects being built. Now people are working more efficiently. Maybe and those are some of the different ways to measure the success of a program. It's not just projects being built, but it's also how you measure people getting better, how your workforce is getting better.
Yeah, good point. Stevie, May, any KPIs that you guys highlight for your DIY program?
I guess the same, the how many coaches do we have, applications, the reduce manual work hours doing manual work, the certifications, all of this, almost the same.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. I want to move on to the next one because I'm really jonesing for the next one because the topic is resistance. Okay. And since we've got like IT and business folks here, sometimes the resistance is between those groups, but sometimes it's other things. What resistance did you get in the beginning and how did you overcome it? But then there's a follow-up to that. Does the resistance change as the program matures? So maybe you got resistance in the beginning of your program from one area, and then as you got bigger, that resistance started coming from another area. And so let's start with Jesse, if you wanna do that first.
Sure. So I think my journey is a little bit different because I got hired into Matt. It's kind of like there was already users using local no-code tools, and I got hired in to sort of build a program to try to govern it, right? Resistance for when I was working with a controller org in SiriusXM, it wasn't about adopting the tool, but it was really the governance component that goes along with the documentation, and so people like to build, people like to run stuff, but people don't like to document and plan for what if this is mission critical and fit, and then the app or the workflow fails, who's going to fix it, right? How does it get fixed? People don't like to try to document that type of stuff. So that's a initial resistance, and how I was able to overcome it was really just say this is the way. This is, you have to do it, right? Because this is coming from the top, and that's just how it is. And when we started implementing our governance process, because we have a governance platform that once you build it, then you're supposed to go through these steps of reviews to eventually productionalize it. Once we start going through that process and people start seeing the benefits of having things documented, and we're able to actually capture the benefits, the KPIs, then yeah, as a program matures, then I think people are that becomes part of culture, and people are no longer resistant to it, right? So that's working with this particular business unit where there's already adoption of the tool, but we're trying to build governance around it. And then what the challenge that I'm starting to face right now is because we're trying to replicate, right? And then I'm actually also having users interested that's outside of CFO org, and how do I so let me backtrack. So the vendor for our local tool came to do a demo for various departments, and I don't think it was really effective, to be honest. I think the interesting thing was that for this particular one department, that the vendor demo to their higher ups, and it was and they just weren't interested. But when I was talking to one of my peers and say, no, I found out like one of my peers, they were scoping around with some other tools. And I showed them this tool, and then he was like, oh, tell me more. And then now he wants to get a license, and he wants his team to start messing around with it, right? So I would say part of resistance can come from you're talking to wrong people, like within a business org. If you're trying to expand your program to another business unit, you have to talk to the right people. You can't talk too high up because they're not the ones that really know the work, that really do the work. If you talk to people that actually the low level staff, yes, they will adopt, but it's not going to be as effective. I think the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle, where they have influence over teams, and they do understand the work, and I think some of the resistance can come from talking to wrong people and understanding the political landscape, if you will.
Okay.
So
All right,
that's
very good. So
yeah.
you didn't have a lot of resistance right out of the gate because the program was kind of already established. How about somebody who was starting? Well, Mike, so
Yeah,
you were there at the
absolutely.
beginning.
So, like when we started, I always say like if you've never like I'm not an arrogant person, but I could do this anywhere because when I started this, IT was vehemently against low code development. Like I said, they turned it all off. And they were like, "Oh, this is garbage, and it's going to be a hackathon, and we're going to have data breaches and all this other stuff." And so my thought process when I moved forward, because again, we had enough momentum, right? But IT was like, "Not a chance. This is going to be a disaster." What I had to do was I had to make sure that I addressed the concerns of every naysayer specifically. So IT security, data, quality assurance. I had to make sure people understood that we weren't just going to be developing whatever, whenever, that there was a method to the madness. Um, and there was actually purpose and structure to what we were doing and also show the tangible benefits. Now, that being said, as you grow, as new technology comes, as you start to encroach, if you will, on other people's domains, you're going to get, again, additional resistance, and it's going to ebb and flow. We've got resistors to AI. Now that we're encroaching into the realm of enterprise level solutions, we've got architectural people. Same thing with Jesse. Oh, if it fails, who's gonna fix it? It's not going to change, right? It's going to be the same process as if it was just a Salesforce or something. So, yeah, you definitely. I think the trick here is to tailor your messaging specifically to the person with the concern. And again, that might be in the same department. It may be in a different arena. But if you just go in and you're going, "Oh, everything will be fine because we got this all under control." No, they really want to hear specifically, what about data governance? What about data security? What about making sure that people are building with better practices? You have to address those individually to be successful.
Okay, well said. Stevie and May, your citizen development program is fairly mature. I'm sure you guys would debate and say, no, we still have a long ways to go, but it's fairly mature relative to the rest of us. So what kind of resistance do you experience, or have you?
I'll let me go first. Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to let me go first. Go ahead. You can go first, May.
Okay. So, from my side, that we are from IT, people, as Jesse said, people likes to develop the application, and then when needs to support, to run and maintain, they come back to IT and ask, okay, it's not working. Can you fix for me? But it is do it yourself. So you do, you maintain, you fix whatever you need, and people just need to understand that they had the accountability of the application, and whenever they transit to another role, they also need to to do the knowledge transfer to the new person in this role, that the new person will be accountable for this and this and this. These are the documents that we have to run the application, and sometimes they don't do it and the application became orphan. So people need to understand that they are accountable for that application. So they run maintain, they do the knowledge transfer whenever it's needed, and they have to put in place documents to support, and they are responsible to run the user access management and all of this stuff that it's not IT responsibility as it is a system development
That's
application.
interesting. So you kind of all are echoing that people want to build, but they don't necessarily want to or think about maintenance. And so as a program, you kind
Exactly.
of have to get ahead of that and set expectations. Mike, I know you've got some like rules around this, like non-negotiable rules,
Yeah,
right?
I have like 12 non-negotiable rules. One of them being that you are the developer, you are the maintainer, you are the owner, you are the problem solver, you are everything to this app. Because again, I've got 48,000-ish products. There's one of me. There's no way in the world I could ever maintain that. A fully staffed IT could not maintain that. So they have to understand. And I also have processes that are in place, like flows and whatnot, that go out and look for broken connections and data issues and stuff like that. And depending on the severity of it, it will either pull that app immediately, but it will always let that person know. And just like an orphaned app, if we have an orphaned app, it's immediately pulled. So those are things that I have to do in order to keep and maintain a clean house. But I also level set that expectation up front.
The the specific example that I love is you said an orphaned app. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but when somebody starts an app and then maintains it into perpetuity, you require two people's names
Yes,
tied to that app
at all times.
that own
Absolutely.
it and maintain it.
Yes.
And if somebody leaves the company and now there aren't two people's names tied to that app is in jeopardy of being orphaned and
Yes.
getting pulled out of production, correct?
Yes. Now, and we give them plenty of time. The whole process takes roughly 90 days. After if I have flows that run at night once a week, it goes out there and it looks. And if it finds an orphaned app or an app where one person's still here, but the other one is, it will send the active person and the manager of that person an email saying, you have an app that has been orphaned. You have to have two owners. They can respond and say, oh, I'll fix it. If they do nothing, it will send them another one the next week. After two emails, it then pulls of no response, it quarantines that app, which means it pulls it out but doesn't delete it. I then usually, and this has only happened like maybe once or twice in the 5 years I've been doing this, that it will go out and it will, they'll actually be quarantined and then deleted. So if nothing is done after 90 days, the app is deleted. But again, it rarely happens because people take this stuff very seriously. I mean, they're all over this, and they know the value of it. So again, it shows how invested they are with these products.
Mm, mm, mm. That I don't know, some might say that sounds extreme, but it's effective. Stevie and May, Jesse, do you have anything like that at your organization to make sure that apps don't just float out there unowned, unmaintained?
Yeah, so for our application life management cycles, we have those statistics and those automated flows that go out and say, hey, this app is either not getting used or it isn't tied to connected data sources anymore, or it was owned by two people and now there's only one person. And so we are very similar that it has to be at least two people, and then there's constant phases of the application life management cycle that are constantly checking to make sure that those things are valid and current.
Makes sense. I like the two people rule because somebody's not going to be there, and
it always happens. I mean, inevitably, there's always like a person's gone and something will break, or like I said, it just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, that is something that we're looking to improve, and it depends on the tool too, because if you're on a tool that is more like online, and because like some like the tools that we heavily use, they're on-prem, they're in server. It's different because it's different, so it's harder to run this type of automation where say, hey, to check the Active Directory if they're still there and things like that. But that is something that we are looking to try to try to have a little bit more a stricter enforcement around that. And that's also part of I think like different phases we had uh different priorities. So because for one phase we were just try to pump out as many projects as we can just to prove value. And I think right now we're kind of like trying to step back and look at trying to firm up enforcing some of these rules that we wanted people to follow.
Okay. Okay. You know, this is typical of us five getting together. We can honestly talk about one topic for hours. We've gotten through two of the five categories that I wanted to get through. So I'm just going to move to one. We'll cover it kind of fast. I'm going to skip another, and then I'm going to ask for some closing thoughts on the last one. So the one I want to get to quickly is governance, because it comes up a lot, right? And governance, from my view, is it's a balance. Like, we want to balance empowerment with risk. And so too heavy-handed governance will result in people not wanting to participate, and too light of governance will result in too much risk exposure to your company. So I don't know. I'm just going to kind of, I know I have May and Stevie's name down for this, but anybody that wants to just jump in and first say, what is governance? Let's be clear on that. Stevie or May, did you want to take that one?
I'm gonna let Nate go first on all of them. So.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, the governance, citizen development governance, it's a system of rules, practice, process that the companies must implement to enable the CD programs. And it's really important to mitigate risks and ensure the responsible citizen development are being done, and to keep the applications being developed via local no code on track, and to have a standardized operation model. So it's kind of it.
Well said, May.
Yeah,
You
awesome.
pretty much nailed it there. Okay, well, okay, so we've got it defined, but you started out by saying, like, it's a system of rules, and right away, probably a no-code builder is like, ooh, I don't want rules, like, I just want to build. So let me ask, maybe this is for Stevie, maybe it's for May, I'm not sure. What is good about your governance, and what would you change?
I would say that it's very well documented, and it's very systematic. And like you said, it's a natural balance of how do we not put up a brick wall, but how do we also not have any control? Like, how do we have keep some responsibility, and how we avoid risk, and how do we make sure that people are building to certain data quality standards, to certain rules around accessibility for things that they're facing, and people aren't kind of going all over the spectrum on what you can do with a Canvas application or a dashboard. So I think really it's important around the data, and how do you make sure that you have single source of truth, and how do you make sure that you aren't telling a story differently across different applications or different analytic programs. How do you use governance to avoid duplication and encourage replication? And how do you make sure that if you are a low-code developer that wants to work on a solution, that somebody across the organization hasn't already built one, right? So all of these things, people like May at the data coach level, and that provide that level of governance, really helps, especially in terms of like when you go from very grassroots to you want to scale this out across the enterprise. You need that level of governance in place to help make sure you can do that responsibly and effectively, and you don't get into too much risk with the data and things like that May has talked about.
Okay, not suggesting that your governance program is perfect, okay, but where you are in your maturity, would you say your governance is too heavy, too light, or close to just right? Not saying perfect, but close to just right.
I would say that our governance is a combination of both. So we have the centralized COE, and we had the community of practice that foster innovations, promote the buy-in within the organization. But we also have this system of rules that brings alignment, structure, and a better oversight of what are being done uh, around the world. So we have this tighter control, but we also have these communities around the world that they have their own customized ways of working. My community in Brazil is totally different from Stephen in Gulf of Mexico. So we kind of adapt our communities with our needs. So this is really interesting because it's a combination, and we can also learn with each other. I love the way the Steve runs his community in Gulf of Mexico. I would like to have this kind of structure that he has there. So this is really interesting how each community has his kind of own model. So it's really, really nice.
Very good. So it sounds like you've got a good balance, and it depends on the
Yeah.
culture of the local community as to how mature they are, how light or heavy you need to go. Oh, wow. That's a lot to manage when you go global, right?
Exactly.
Those are the struggles.
And for this, we have the COE, the DIY global team that provides these kind of rules that it's balanced. So we can do different things, but still being compliant with these kind of rules of
Got it.
global
Flexible governance.
flexible with that.
Yes.
Yeah, you definitely have to be flexible. So, Matt, we've got a question from Andy. So talking about the strategies for managing ideation, limiting duplication, and then asking kind of like, hey, do we use like innovation backlogs? The short answer is yes. We do everything that we can to limit duplication. I would say that I personally never try to control or limit ideation because you never know what you're going to get out of there. But I also try to make sure that we have resources available so that if somebody wants to build an app that's already built, why reinvent the wheel? But just like, and I've used this analogy in the past, but I'll keep it real brief. Situations will vary every single time. So I may have an app that tracks timesheets, right? And that works great for me. Somebody else might need it as well, but there might be a nuanced like change or this or that, exact same process, exact same thing, concept, but a little bit of a tweak here and there. So we want to make that stuff available to them. Also, it inspires people with innovation and ideation. So yes, we do have like a library, pages where people can search for stuff. But again, I don't want to control that, like what they're able to build.
Okay, good call. And thank you for recognizing the question. We actually are into the open Q&A time according to the agenda. So we're just going to pivot there. We're already in open Q&A. Okay, so good job.
Yeah. I'll touch on that one in just a minute. So for the U.S. Gulf Coast, we do have very, to what Andy's saying, an innovation backlog. And it could not be regarding low code, no code. It could be innovation in regards of some other digital technology. But the majority of what we see land in that idea tool funnel is low code, no code solutions, or what you would think of as not really an idea, but a business problem. Like, I have this very antiquated system. I need some help. And so we do look at that and we review all of the new items. We prioritize and triage what those looks like. And then we try to match low-code developers in the citizen development community to those items, or if they are further scaling and enterprise level, we look to match somebody in IT to develop those solutions. But it is very visible, and it has information about the idea, the person that submitted, the status. So if the idea is completed, you get a link, you get all the data that you could imagine tied to that idea. So if you want to try to replicate, you can get in touch with the person, or if you want to just go click around and see what the tool looks like, it's all there. So it's been a pretty effective way, because I mean, like everything else, when you're consuming a bunch of data, how do you, most people want to just immediately go put it in a spreadsheet, right? But it's like we're great low code, no code too, and maybe so let's get intelligent about this. Let's run some automation, and when new ideas get put in, let's funnel them to the appropriate swim lanes, etc. So that's worked really well for us, and happy to share more of that offline if anyone wants to.
Yeah, speaking of offline, I think we're going to pivot to the closing now, which left our open Q&A pretty short. So we are going to give you our LinkedIn QR codes so you can connect with us and ask questions outside of this. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to come back and do another session where we dive into questions that you guys are very interested in. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Just going to do a couple of slides here to kind of wrap up and give you those contact QR codes. Where is it? I believe it's there. Let me know when you can see my screen. And then we'll get some parting words of wisdom from each panelist. Y'all can see? Am I screen sharing properly? Does it say agenda closing? Okay.
Yep.
All right, awesome. All right, so to wrap up, I want to share some themes that I've observed about successful scaling of citizen development. Not that these are the only things, but here's the thing. Every company has a unique culture. And so the way they scale needs to be tailored accordingly, okay? But these 4 things I think are pretty universal to those who are seeing success. So number 1 is care for the whole. People, tech, and process. You got to give time and attention to all 3. And neglecting even one will make it challenging to successfully scale. Number 2, I know a couple guys mentioned this today on the panel, start small, then scale. This is not a big bang event where one day you're not doing citizen development and the next day you're doing it at full scale. Scale takes time to build, so start small, scale little by little as you reflect and learn. Shell took 4 years to scale to thousands of citizen developers. Number 3, assess suitability. Not every project is suitable for citizen development. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Sometimes it's better to leave it to the IT pros. Sometimes it's better to buy off the shelf. And sometimes, yes, it's even better just to whip up a spreadsheet. So it's recommended that you use some sort of assessment template to determine which is best. And number 4, I'll say determine the path. Once you've determined that your project is suitable for citizen development, you then need to be aware that not all citizen development projects are created equal. Some are easy and can be handled by the citizen developer alone. Some involve a little more complexity, and so IT should assist. And others are very complex, so IT will do most, but the citizen developer might contribute in small ways like building a form or designing a report. Now, Shell refers to this path selection as their zoning model. Easy projects are in the green zone, medium projects in the yellow zone, and difficult projects are in the red zone. Okay, now at the beginning of the session, I promised that I'd give you a free citizen development course in appreciation of your time and attendance. So if you want this course, I recommend take a picture of this slide now. The course is Citizen Developer Foundation by Project Management Institute. It's a 90-minute online course that gives you a vision and language to collaborate with others on some of the things that we talked about today. For example, the course introduces citizen development roles, a maturity model for starting small and scaling, and an approach for assessing suitability. The course is normally $79, but I asked my company AgilePoint if they'd make it available for free, and they said yes. AgilePoint's an app building platform that scales very well for both IT and citizen developers. And last year, we partnered with the Project Management Institute to make their courses, their CD courses, available on our online system. So if you want access to this course for free, just send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, direct message me that you'd like to have access to the CD Foundation course, and I will hook you up. If you weren't fast enough to take a picture, don't worry, because we'll get you a link. And then also this next slide has more of our contact information. So, all right, brings us to the end here. I did that kind of fast, and it's good. These are our panelists. I hold all of them in high esteem, and I'm thankful for the 2 hours that they spent with us today to share this valuable information from their experience. These are the QR codes for their LinkedIn. If you want to connect with any of us, just send us a connection request and we will accept, and we can engage with you online in more conversations. So with that, I want to finish with words of wisdom, any words of wisdom. It can be CD related, hopefully, or it can just be some silly dad joke. Let's hear from each panelist. Jesse first.
I think just continue to be curious and be hungry, and that's it.
All right. May.
I would like to add that you should think big, start small, so then scale. But first, think big.
I like that. All right, Mike.
Sometimes it's the people that we think nothing of that do the things that we never dreamed of. That was Alan Turing. I can't take credit for that quote, but have faith in your program, have faith in your people, come out of your comfort zone and just keep building.
That's a really, can you say that quote again? I really like that.
Sometimes it's the people that we never thought of that do the things that we never think of. It's roughly, there's like 3 or 4 different ways I've seen it, but basically it's like I was saying earlier, I see products that people build and I'm like, wow, where did this come from? Who are you? What kind of superhero are you? I'm not the superhero. It's the people that dream up these ideas. So yeah, it's amazing stuff.
That's like the untapped potential that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
There's so many of us just waiting in the wings. Citizen development is going to open that up.
And AI is making it even easier to do. So
good point. Okay.